If people can't feel what you say, they won't be moved by your voice. That simple truth changes everything about how you communicate. Most people speak to be noticed. Leaders speak to leave a mark. The difference isn't in how loud you are, it's in how sharp, how clear, how steady, and how well-timed your words are. When your voice lacks authority, your ideas are dismissed. When your words lack weight, your presence fades. This audiobook exists to change that. To help you build a voice that doesn't just fill space but commands it. A voice that doesn't need to shout to be heard or impress to create impact. A voice that cuts through noise and causes decisions. You don't need fancy language. You need words that land. You don't need to say more. You need to say it better. This book is structured to give you chapter-by-chapter tools you can apply today. In real conversations. In high-stakes moments. In leadership roles. This is not for people who want to lead someday. This is for those ready to lead now. Because if your voice doesn't lead, nothing else will. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Speak with full ownership. Leadership begins the moment you take full responsibility for every word you say. If your words don't carry weight, you're just creating noise, and noise doesn't move hearts. Noise doesn't change minds. Noise doesn't build trust. But when you speak with purpose, when your tone signals belief and your words carry presence, people pause. They listen. They remember. Confidence in speech doesn't come from volume. It doesn't come from dominance. It comes from alignment. When you stand behind what you say, it means you believe what you're saying. And if you don't believe your own words, why should anyone else? Confidence is born the day you stop doubting your voice and start taking full ownership of it. Most people speak halfway. Their sentences are littered with uncertainty. Phrases like, I guess, maybe, just my opinion, or I could be wrong, but each time you dilute your speech, you weaken your message. You lose your listener. The truth is, no one rallies behind indecision. No one is inspired by someone who sounds unsure. No one takes direction from a voice that hesitates. To speak like a leader, you must commit to your words. Say what you mean what you say. Take full accountability for the message you're delivering. When people hear you speak, they should feel your sincerity. They should sense that what you're saying isn't casual noise, it's who you are. It's what you live by. It's what you stand for. How do you reach that level? Start with awareness. Be intentional with your everyday speech. Don't let your words run on autopilot. Leaders don't ramble. They don't fill silence for the sake of speaking. They speak when it matters. They speak with direction. A leader's voice doesn't come from habit, it comes from intention. Every word is chosen. Every sentence has purpose. Their message isn't performative, it's authentic. Another thing, confidence is built before you speak. If you're unclear about what you believe, your message will crumble. That's why real leaders prepare. They think deeply. They reflect often. They refine their thoughts before delivering them. When the moment comes to speak, they aren't scrambling for words. They've already wrestled with the truth. They've already sharpened their beliefs. That's why their voice resonates. You also earn confidence by aligning what you say with how you live. If your actions don't mirror your words, people will sense it, and so will you. You'll start to question yourself, and your voice will hesitate. You can't speak like a leader if you aren't living like one. People trust what they see more than what they hear. If your lifestyle reinforces your message, your voice will carry natural strength. You won't need to prove your authority. You'll have it. Here's another shift to make. Stop apologizing for your truth. Stop shrinking your message so others feel comfortable. Leaders aren't concerned with pleasing everyone. They care about being clear. They speak to lead, not to be liked. You don't need to be abrasive, but you do need to be unwavering. Be honest. Be grounded. Be direct. If you filter every thought to avoid offense, you'll never say anything meaningful. If you constantly worry about being liked, your message will soften into something forgettable. When you walk into a room and speak, your energy should shift the room, not through volume, but through presence. People should feel that your words are rooted in something deeper. That you're not winging it. That your message is built on experience, not opinion. That's what gives your words substance. It also means removing weak language. Stop cushioning your words to protect your ego. Eliminate unnecessary fillers. Stop hiding behind uncertainty. If something matters, say it. If you believe in something, own it. If something is wrong, call it out. Many people bury their strength under politeness. But leadership isn't about sounding nice, it's about standing firm in what's real. Another overlooked tool of confidence is silence. Weak communicators fill every gap with noise. They talk quickly. They fear pauses. But strong communicators understand the power of silence. They let their words breathe. They deliver a truth, then pause to let it land. They don't rush. They don't scramble. They let the silence speak. Because silence can command a room more than noise ever could. Here's a reminder you need to hold close. Your voice is your tool, not your crutch. Don't speak to seek approval. Don't speak to look smart. Speak with intention. Speak to guide. Speak to serve. When your goal is to create progress, not to gain applause, your voice transforms. You're no longer speaking for reaction. You're speaking for impact. And that shift changes everything. Talking like a leader isn't about vocabulary. It's not about perfect grammar. It's not about sounding intellectual. It's about being real, being clear, being steady. That's what people follow. In a world saturated with opinions, the voices that stand out are the ones that speak with truth. So if you want to talk like a leader, begin here, own your voice. Don't second guess. Don't outsource your message. Don't wait for permission. Speak with your chest. Speak from your values. Speak like every word matters, because it does. Every time you do, your confidence strengthens. Your presence expands. Your leadership grows. Because the moment you take full responsibility for your words, you begin to take full responsibility for your space. You carry yourself differently. People sense your internal authority. They hear it in your voice. They feel it in your delivery. You no longer try to sound like a leader. You are one. And that changes everything. If you want to lead, influence, or even be taken seriously, you need to make your words land with clarity. Not cleverness. Not complication. Clarity. Clear communication is what makes people trust you. And trust is the foundation of every action, every decision, every commitment. If people don't understand you, they won't follow you. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how hard you've worked. If your words don't connect, your impact disappears. Unclear communication is a silent killer. It leaves confusion, frustration, and misinterpretation behind. And here's the hard truth: when people misunderstand you, that's not their fault. That's on you. Clarity is your responsibility. You don't get to blame the listener. You don't get to say, well, that's not what I meant. If your message didn't get across, you didn't do your job. Period. So what does clear communication look like? It starts before you even open your mouth. If your thinking is a mess, your words will be a mess. If your thoughts are scattered, your speech will be scattered. You've got to organize your mind before you speak. Be precise. Get specific. Stop using vague, roundabout language. Stop talking in generalities. Don't say, maybe we should look into this. Say, we need to start this project today at 3 p.m. Don't say, we kind of need better communication. Say, every team member must send daily updates by 6 p.m. Don't just talk. Direct. Next, cut the fluff. If you can say it in 5 words, don't use 15. If you can deliver a clean point, don't drown it in side stories and long-winded context. People's attention spans are short. Their minds are busy. If your message isn't sharp, it won't survive. Strip your speech down to what actually matters. Another essential: use words people actually understand. You're not trying to sound smart. You're trying to be understood. Ditch the jargon. Ditch the technical terms if they're not necessary. Speak the language your audience speaks. Meet people where they are. If you're explaining something to your team, break it down in a way that actually helps them do their job better. Don't talk to impress, talk to connect. Now here's something most people never think about: slow down. When you speak too fast, your message loses weight. Your thoughts blur together. People miss the key points. And once someone checks out, they rarely come back. Fast talking is often insecurity in disguise. People rush when they're nervous. They think speed equals confidence. But it doesn't. Real confidence is calm. Real confidence breathes. Strong communicators take their time. They let each word hit. They pause. And those pauses are powerful. They let the message settle. They give people space to feel it. Slow down and people lean in. Also, match your tone to your message. Tone matters more than you think. You can say the right words, but if your tone is flat, sarcastic, or confused, the message falls apart. Or worse, it gets misunderstood. Tone is how you package your belief. It's your emotion made audible. It tells people whether they should care, whether this is serious, whether it's urgent. If your tone doesn't align with your message, people won't believe it. If you're serious, sound serious. If you're excited, let it show. If it matters to you, let your tone prove it. Another reason clarity suffers is when people try to say everything at once. You don't need to share your entire life story. You don't need to list every possible option. Pick your point. Drive it home. Stick to one message at a time. Don't flood people with details they didn't ask for. Clarity is about guiding, not overwhelming. Here's a pro tip: don't be afraid to repeat your main point once, not 5 times. Not in circles. Once. State it. Pause. Restate it with certainty. Then move forward. Not in loops. Not in tangents. Forward. And pay attention while you talk. Read the room. Watch people's eyes. Watch their faces. Are they confused? Distracted? Lost? Leaning in? Real communicators adapt. They adjust mid-sentence if necessary. They clarify in real time. They check in, not to seek approval, but to make sure the message is landing. Ask, does that make sense? And mean it. If it doesn't, don't defend. Don't get defensive. Just explain it better. One more thing, your words are only part of your message. Your body talks too. Your posture, your facial expression, your gestures. If your body says one thing and your words say another, people will believe your body. Every time. Stand up. Face people. Make eye contact. Show that you're present, that you're engaged. That visual clarity reinforces your verbal clarity. And remember, clarity is a muscle. You don't wait for the big speech to develop it. You train it every day. In everyday conversations. In one-on-one meetings. In casual chats. You work on saying what matters. You work on trimming your sentences. You work on using better words. You sharpen your delivery. That's how you get better. That's how leaders grow. Not by hoping to be understood, but by choosing to be understood. Clarity is not a talent. It's a decision. A decision to think before speaking. A decision to simplify. A decision to honor people's time. Every time you speak, you're either building trust or breaking it. You're either connecting or confusing. And your influence depends on that connection. So stop hoping people will figure out what you meant. Make it easy for them. Speak clearly. Speak with direction. Speak like your words matter, because they do. Before you can lead others, you have to lead yourself. And your voice is the first place it shows. Your voice is more than sound. It's a signal. It broadcasts your energy, your mindset, your steadiness, or your lack of it. You can be intelligent. You can be well-intentioned. But if your voice wavers, if your tone is shaky, if your rhythm is frantic, people won't follow. Why? Because leadership begins with presence. And your voice is your presence, made audible. When you're nervous, people hear it. When you're angry, they hear it. When you're unsure, they hear it. You can't hide what's going on inside. It will show up in your tone, your pacing, your delivery. That's why the first voice you need to manage is your own. Leadership doesn't sound like panic. Leadership doesn't sound like chaos. Leadership sounds grounded, steady, calm, directed, not loud, not desperate, but certain. Here's the difference. Loud voices want to be noticed. Grounded voices want to be understood. The loud are performing. The grounded are leading. When your voice is under control, people trust you. They feel safe around you. They know you're not going to break, blow up, or spiral. People crave steadiness, and they'll follow the person whose voice provides it. So how do you get that kind of control? Step 1, awareness. You cannot control a voice you haven't listened to. Most people have never actually heard themselves speak. They don't know what they sound like when they're frustrated, nervous, excited, or uncertain. Record yourself. Play it back. Pay attention. Do you talk too fast? Do you speak too softly? Is your tone too flat? Too sharp? Too scattered? You need to know, because if you can't hear it, you can't fix it. Next, take control of your breathing. Yes, your breath. It sounds simple, but most people speak with shallow breath, especially when under pressure. And shallow breathing creates shaky voices, creates tight throats, anxious rhythms, rushed delivery. When you slow your breathing, everything changes. Your tone deepens. Your rhythm evens out. Your energy steadies. People feel it even if they don't realize it consciously. Before every important moment, breathe. Before you speak in a meeting, before you have a serious conversation, before you deliver feedback, center yourself. Let the breath settle your system. Your voice reflects your inner world. So control starts inside. Here's another principle. A strong voice knows when not to speak. You don't have to fill every silence. You don't have to comment on every issue. You don't need to win every room by dominating it. Controlled voices know the power of restraint. They don't rush to reply. They don't react emotionally. They wait. They listen. Then they speak with precision, not panic. Because the fewer words you use, the more each one matters. Think about the leaders you admire most. Did they ramble? Did they explode? Did they scramble for the perfect comeback? No. They paused. They thought. They delivered messages with weight. That doesn't happen by chance. That's discipline. That's vocal control. It's not just about your message. It's about your message under pressure. Anyone can speak well when things are calm, but real leadership shows up in chaos, when tempers flare, when emotions rise, when you're being challenged. If your voice cracks every time you're questioned, people lose faith. They may respect your ideas, but they won't trust your presence. Control means you don't change your tone every time the room does. It means your voice doesn't spike when you're emotional. It means your rhythm doesn't break just because someone challenges you. Here's the brutal truth. If your voice isn't stable, neither is your leadership. That's why you train. You train by practicing your delivery. You rehearse not to be fake, but to refine. Practice tough conversations before they happen. Practice staying calm while being questioned. Practice delivering direct messages with no anger, no fluff. You train like it matters because it does. And remember, your voice matters even in small moments. How you speak in day-to-day conversations is how people form trust. They're watching how you give feedback, how you explain, how you react under minor tension. Every moment is a training ground. Don't wait for the big speech. Master your tone in the hallway, in the car, on the phone. Control is a daily discipline. Let's talk about energy. Your energy fuels your voice. If your tone lacks life, no one will feel your words. You can't inspire people with a dead voice. You can't energize a team with monotone delivery. You don't have to be dramatic, but you do have to be present. A voice that leads is a voice that cares. One that brings focus. One that carries intention. One that pulls attention, not demands it. You don't need a booming voice. You need a believing one. And that only comes from preparation. That only comes from emotional regulation. That only comes from doing the work before the moment arrives. Let's say you're triggered. Let's say someone disrespects you, or misunderstands you, or pushes your buttons. Do you explode? Do you tighten? Do you shrink? Or do you breathe? Do you hold your tone? Do you respond without reacting? That's control. And that's leadership. Because people are listening. They're not just listening to your words. They're listening for your leadership, for your consistency, for your discipline. And they'll make decisions based on that. They'll decide whether to trust you, whether to support you, whether to follow you, based on how you carry your voice when the pressure is real. The best communicators, leaders who move people, they don't need tricks. They don't need gimmicks. They don't even need long speeches. They've trained their voice to lead, and it shows. So if you want your voice to carry weight, train it, record it, review it, refine it, cut the panic, cut the speed, cut the filler, breathe deep, speak slow, deliver with intention. Let your tone show that you're grounded, that you've thought it through, that you don't speak to be liked, you speak because it's time to lead. Your voice will either attract trust or repel it. It will either move people or confuse them. So train it like it matters because it's the first tool you'll use to lead every single day. Don't wait for confidence to show up. Build it. Build it through control. Because the moment your voice stops chasing approval and starts guiding people forward, that's when your leadership becomes real. There's one purpose behind every word a leader speaks: to create movement, not to sound clever, not to fill space, not to be admired, but to move people from thought to decision, from hesitation to action, from passiveness to progress. That's what separates average communicators from real leaders. The average speaker says what sounds good. A leader says what works. Your words should not just enter people's ears. They should hit their mind, challenge their comfort, and activate something inside them. If your message doesn't stir people to act, it doesn't matter to how elegant it sounds. It's empty. We live in a world flooded with content, opinions, advice, information. Most of it doesn't change anything. It gets heard, then forgotten. Why? Because it doesn't carry urgency. It doesn't pierce the comfort zone. It doesn't challenge the delay people live in every day. You want to lead? Then your words need to wake people up. Not with noise, not with theatrics, but with truth that lands like a call to rise. That's the kind of voice people follow. So how do you do it? Start by checking your motive. Are you speaking to impress? Or are you speaking to shift something in the listener? Because if your intention is ego-driven, your voice won't land. Impact doesn't come from performance. It comes from alignment. Say things that come from what you've lived, not what you've memorized. People know the difference. They can feel when your words are built on experience instead of theory. When they are real, not rehearsed. Real words land differently. They cut deeper. They carry friction, and people feel that friction in their bones. If you want to move people, speak directly to what they're avoiding. Speak to the weight they're carrying. Speak to the decisions they're postponing. Speak to the gap between what they want to do and what they're actually doing. You don't need to be polished. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be true. Say it raw. Say it clean. Say it once and let it echo. You don't need to over-explain. You don't need to protect your point. People don't move when they're overloaded with data. They move when clarity breaks through the noise and slaps them awake. Here's a phrase to live by: short, strong, straight. That's how you build motion into your message. Say it simply. Say it like you believe it. Then stop. Don't have fluff. Don't decorate the truth. Just let it land. And let silence do its job. That pause after your message, that's where transformation begins. Because in the pause, people wrestle with what you said. They hear their excuses cracking. They hear the urgency getting louder. That's when they decide. Now, let's talk about urgency. It's a word people misuse. Urgency is not panic. It's not yelling. It's not chaos. Urgency is pressure with purpose. It's saying, if you stay the same, you'll lose something that matters. It's showing people what's at stake if they wait too long. It's reminding them that delay is not neutral, it's dangerous. Because the most harmful decisions people make are often the ones they don't make. They wait. They drift. They excuse. They hide. And then they look back and wonder what happened. Your job as a leader is to interrupt that cycle. To make them feel that now matters. That comfort is costing them. That indecision is a silent killer. If your words don't carry that urgency, they'll get lost in the scroll. So ask yourself, what will it cost someone if they don't act after hearing me? Then say that. That's what gets people to move. Next, use the language they use. Speak in a way that doesn't sound like a seminar. Don't talk like a motivational quote. Talk like a human. Use words that feel familiar. Use tone that feels personal. Say things in a way that sounds like you've been where they are. Because when your message sounds like it came from their world, not above it, they trust it. And don't confuse hype with truth. Inspiration can spark movement, but confrontation creates it. Sometimes the most powerful words you say won't be feel-good. They'll be uncomfortable. They'll hit hard. They'll say the thing everyone else is afraid to say. You've been hiding. You've been making excuses. You've settled. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. And people need it. Because buried inside most people is a version of themselves they've stopped pursuing. And they need someone to challenge them back into motion. You can be that voice, but only if you stop softening the message. Don't say it's okay when it's not. Don't tell them to take their time when time is exactly what they're wasting. Say, enough waiting. It's time. That sentence, delivered with presence, can change someone's life. And here's another secret. People are not looking for motivation. They're looking for permission. Permission to want more. Permission to stop playing small. Permission to take themselves seriously again. Your voice can grant that permission, but not if you water it down. So cut the safety net. Say what matters. Say it with strength. Say it like someone who's done the hard work themselves. Because if you haven't lived it, don't preach it. But if you have, if your words are forged in your own fire, people will follow. And remember, simplicity moves people. Complexity stalls them. Break things down. Give them one clear next step. Start now. Call today. Write the letter. Let it go. These aren't just statements. They're activation switches. And they work if you mean them. The best communicators don't try to change lives with long speeches. They say one thing that hits, then they shut up. So speak like that. Speak like your words are a trigger. Speak like your voice might be the push someone's been waiting for. Not everyone will clap. That's fine. Because applause isn't the goal, action is. You don't want their praise. You want their decision. So lead them to it. With strong words. With real truth. With clean pressure. That's how people move. That's how change begins. And that's how your voice becomes more than sound, it becomes impact. Every time you speak, you are either gaining credibility or losing it. You are either commanding attention or being ignored. And the difference lies in your words, not just what you say, but how you say it and how much weight your words carry when they land. Strong words don't mean harsh words. They mean words that matter. Words that are clear. Words that don't beg for approval. Words that show you've earned the right to speak and people should listen. Weak words slip through the cracks. They're forgotten the moment they're said. But strong words stick. They create a pause in the room. They carry authority without shouting. They don't need decoration, explanation, or emotional backup. They land. You want to talk like a leader? You must understand the true power of language, not just to communicate, but to influence, to shape how people think, to guide how they feel, to challenge what they believe. And that means becoming ruthless with the way you speak. Cut out the fluff. Cut out the disclaimers. Cut out the phrases that weaken your message. I think, maybe, I guess, sort of, just, I'm not sure, but every time you use one of those, your voice loses strength. Every time you add verbal padding, you teach people not to take you seriously. You don't need to soften your voice to be accepted. You don't need to shrink your confidence to keep the peace. And you definitely don't need to dilute your truth just to sound polite. There's a myth that strength sounds rude. That directness means you're not compassionate. But real strength in speech comes from clarity, not cruelty. From precision, not volume. From conviction, not arrogance. You don't need to dominate a conversation to control it. You just need to be solid. Here's the formula: fewer words, more meaning. Speak clean. Speak sharp. Speak like someone who's done the work before opening their mouth. Because your choice of words reveals your standards. If your thoughts are lazy, your language will be weak. If your values are vague, your tone will be shaky. But when you think clearly, when you've faced discomfort, when you've earned your voice, you won't need to perform. You'll just speak. And people will feel it. And make no mistake, people can tell when your voice is empty. They know when your words are borrowed. They know when your message is stitched together from other people's opinions. They know when you're trying to sound right instead of being right. But they also know when your voice is real, when it's lived in, when it's been tested, when it comes from scars, not scripts. That's the voice that breaks through. That's the voice that builds respect. And if you want your words to have that kind of presence, you need to stop saying things you don't believe. Stop performing. Start owning. Speak from experience. Speak from values. Speak from your core. Every sentence should be clean. Every point should be strong enough to stand on its own. Every message should reflect the level of discipline you live by. Because people may forget the details of what you said, but they'll remember how your words made them feel. And they'll remember if you respected their time. Strong communication is efficient. It doesn't meander. It doesn't ramble. It doesn't dump information hoping something sticks. It cuts straight through. It delivers value. It gets to the point. The strongest voices don't say more. They say it better. They don't throw paragraphs at you. They give you one line that stays with you for weeks. They don't try to prove how much they know. They speak what matters and they let the silence do the rest. Your goal is not to be clever. Your goal is to be clear. Because clarity is power. If people have to ask, what did you mean by that? You've already lost them. A strong message is impossible to misunderstand. So if you want people to listen longer, respect your own message enough to prepare it. Speak like someone who values what they say, not someone trying to impress. Don't speak out of boredom. Don't speak out of habit. Don't speak out of insecurity. Speak because there's something inside you that must be said and you are the only one who can say it that way. Also, remember that attention is not automatic. You earn it. You earn it by saying things that matter. Things that hit. Things that don't require repetition because they carry impact the first time. Strong words are like anchors, they hold people in place. They don't float around like suggestions. They don't drift into memory loss. They stay, but they must be earned. You can't fake strong speech. If you haven't done the internal work, if your standards aren't built, if your values aren't real, your words won't hold up. That's why you don't start with speaking. You start with building. You build beliefs. You build mental clarity. You build discipline. Then your voice becomes a natural extension of who you are. And once your voice matches your character, you don't need to raise it. You don't need to demand attention. People will give it to you. Why? Because the way you speak tells them something about you. It tells them you think deeply. It tells them you live intentionally. It tells them your voice isn't noise, it's navigation. And there's one more thing you must hold onto: strong language is honest language. You don't dance around the truth. You don't twist it. You don't layer it in comfort so it goes down easier. You just tell it, this isn't working. That needs to stop. Here's what needs to happen next. You don't say it to offend. You say it to lead. And people respect that. Not because it's popular, but because it's real. That's the voice that rises in any room. Not the loudest, not the fanciest, but the one that is grounded, present, unshaken, and earned. It's the voice that doesn't rely on tricks. It relies on clarity. And clarity is built through repetition, through living aligned with your words. You don't build that voice by reading quotes. You build it by walking into tension, by speaking with precision, by cutting the fluff. And over time, that's what makes you unforgettable. Because in a world full of talking, strong words stand out. Speak less. Say more. Speak clearly. Say what you mean. And make every word worth remembering. That's how you build a voice that commands, not through fear, but through strength. If you want to change how people see you, change how you speak. Your voice isn't just how others hear you. It's how they feel you. It's how they decide if you're worth listening to, if your message matters, and if you're someone who leads or someone who follows. Weak talk will betray you before your message has a chance to land. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how hard you work, or how good your intentions are. If your voice is coated in hesitation, your leadership won't carry. Weak talk sounds like this: I think, maybe we could, this might be a bad idea, but I just wanted to say, that probably doesn't make sense. But every time you speak like that, you shrink yourself. You give people permission to tune out. You train them to ignore your message. Because your message sounds like you're not sure it matters. That ends here. If you want your voice to have strength, it has to start with belief. Not in the message alone, but in yourself. You can't fake strength. You can't pretend you're confident while your voice is begging for validation. If you want to sound like a leader, speak like someone who believes every word they say. You don't need to shout. You don't need to be aggressive. You need to be solid. You need to be rooted. You need to speak with a presence that tells the room, I've thought about this. I've lived this. I stand behind this. That kind of presence isn't about performance. It's about practice. You earn it in how you speak every day. Not just in big meetings or big moments, but in every conversation, every email, every hallway interaction. You either reinforce your strength or reinforce your doubt. And the first step to strength? Drop the weak phrases. Replace I think with I believe. Replace maybe with we need to. Replace just wanted to say with here's what I need you to hear. Speak with certainty. Speak without apology. Speak like you've earned your place at the table, not like you're hoping someone lets you stay. Let's be clear, this isn't about ego. It's not about arrogance. It's about clarity and courage. You're not speaking to be liked. You're speaking to lead. Leaders don't soften every word to avoid discomfort. They say what needs to be said, when it needs to be said, and they trust that clarity is more valuable than comfort. And when people hear that tone, when they feel that energy, they listen differently. They take you seriously. They remember what you said. They stop interrupting you. Because your words hold weight. And in a world drowning in soft noise, weight is what people follow. Another thing that weak talk does, it wastes time. You ramble. You talk in circles. You add 20 seconds of unnecessary context to protect your ego. And by the time you finally get to your point, no one's paying attention. Strong speech doesn't waste breath. It gets to the point. It delivers value with every sentence. It honors people's time and attention, and that alone builds respect. Strong communication is efficient communication. Not rushed. Not blunt. Efficient. Every word earns its place. Every pause is intentional. Every sentence is aimed at movement, not performance. And that kind of strength creates a ripple effect. You feel it in your body, in your posture, in how you walk into rooms, in how you stop second-guessing yourself halfway through a sentence. Because when you stop using weak language, something shifts inside you. You're no longer filtering every word. You're no longer bracing for disapproval. You're no longer auditioning for permission. You're speaking from clarity. You're speaking from alignment. You're speaking from ownership. And when you do that, when your inner voice and outer voice are in sync, people can't ignore you. They feel the weight of your presence. They stop scrolling. They lean in. They trust what you say. But here's the truth. Weak talk comes from fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being misunderstood. And those fears are real. But you can't let them drive your communication. Because the moment your fear shapes your message is no longer yours. It's a watered-down version of what someone else wants to hear. You don't need to sound harsh to sound strong. You don't need to dominate to be respected. You just need to stop diluting your thoughts before they reach your voice. Start saying the real thing. Say it clearly. Say it clean. Say it once. Don't wrap it in disclaimers. Don't layer it with softeners. Just say what needs to be said. And then stop. Let your strength speak. Let your stillness speak. Let your silence after the statement speak louder than the old, insecure explanations ever could. Because sometimes the strongest moment in any conversation is the pause after truth lands. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to chase approval. You just need to trust that if your voice is aligned with your values, it will do the work for you. So here's your new rule. Speak like a leader before you feel like one. Speak strong now. Your voice will catch up. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And the more natural it becomes, the more powerful your communication will feel, both to you and to the people listening. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about removing the language that's keeping the real you from showing up. So train your speech. Eliminate one weak phrase at a time. Challenge yourself to speak without shrinking. Challenge yourself to speak without rushing. Challenge yourself to trust that your truth, clearly spoken, is more than enough. Because it is. And once people hear that voice, your true voice, delivered with strength, stripped of apology, backed by purpose, they won't just hear you. They'll follow you. And that's when your voice becomes leadership. This is the moment where your voice is truly tested, not when everyone agrees with you, but when they don't. Not when the room is nodding, but when someone raises an eyebrow, pushes back, or tries to shake your message. Leadership isn't tested in calm waters. It's tested in conflict. And your ability to stay grounded in those moments determines whether you're just speaking or actually leading. Anyone can sound confident when there's no pressure. Anyone can speak strong when no one's questioning them. But what about when the room is cold? What about when your tone is doubted? When your values are challenged? When your message is twisted? What do you do then? Do you shrink? Soften your voice? Apologize for clarity? Or do you hold? Do you remain planted in truth? Do you stand tall in the discomfort? Because that's where real leadership speaks loudest, in silence, in steadiness, in presence. People will test you. That's a guarantee. They'll test your conviction, your emotional control, your confidence. They'll poke and prod subtly or directly to see if your voice wobbles, if your stance shifts, if your tone cracks. And in those moments, you have two choices: stay grounded in clarity or be dragged by doubt. You cannot lead if you bend to every breeze of disagreement. You cannot influence if you dilute your message to please the crowd. You cannot build respect by changing your words every time someone flinches. Leadership is clarity under pressure. That means knowing what you believe before you speak. It means thinking deeply, refining your standards, and anchoring your message in so. Being real is something lived. Because if you haven't done that work in private, the world will expose it in public. Your presence doesn't come from being perfect, it comes from being anchored. Grounded voices don't yell. They don't panic. They don't defend every word with desperation. They stand. They say what needs to be said. They stay calm in the discomfort. And they prove with every word and every pause that they are not performing, they are leading. And here's the truth. The more you hold your ground, the stronger you become. The first time you don't fold, it's scary. Your voice might shake. Your chest might tighten. But you say it anyway. The second time, you breathe slower. You feel your feet on the ground. You realize you didn't die. You didn't break. You grew. By the 10th time, you're a rock. You don't flinch. You don't shrink. You don't chase approval. You speak, and the room knows you mean it. You become someone people count on in the storm. Not because you're the loudest, but because your message doesn't move every time the room does. You don't need to meet every challenge with confrontation. Sometimes, strength means not reacting. A smirk doesn't deserve your energy. A sideways comment doesn't need a counterargument. A trap question doesn't require a monologue. Hold your ground by holding your peace. By showing you are not emotionally shaken by small resistance. You don't lead from reactivity. You lead from response. And the more people see that, the more they trust you. Because leadership isn't loud, it's consistent. And people don't follow the one who reacts to everything. They follow the one who remains clear no matter what's thrown at them. So what does that look like? It looks like this. You speak truth. Calmly. You deliver your message. Directly. You pause. You breathe. You stay present. If someone disagrees, you don't crumble. If someone challenges, you don't over-explain. If someone mocks, you don't lash back. You hold. Not out of stubbornness, but out of strength. Not because you're trying to win an argument, but because you're protecting your integrity. This is especially important in leadership, because the higher you go, the more resistance you'll face. More visibility means more scrutiny. More responsibility means more people hoping you'll flinch, shift, or backtrack. Your job isn't to convince everyone. It's to be convicted enough that your message doesn't rely on their approval. And let's be honest, not everyone wants to understand. Some people want to provoke, not engage. Don't get pulled into every battle. Some debates are distractions. Some arguments are traps. Not every comment deserves your attention. Your job is not to win every discussion. Your job is to stay rooted. Because when you do, people feel it. They might not cheer for you, but they'll trust you. They'll remember that you didn't shake, that you didn't chase applause, that you delivered truth with clarity even when it wasn't popular. That's how leaders are remembered. Not for their words in easy times, but for their presence in hard ones. Your steadiness becomes a mirror. It reflects to others what strength looks like. It gives them permission to do the same. So don't trade your strength for comfort. Don't trade your clarity for applause. Don't trade your leadership for likability. When you speak, mean it. And when it's challenged, hold it. Because when people see that your message stays the same, whether whispered or shouted, whether welcomed or rejected, they begin to respect you differently. They stop testing you. They start believing you. And belief is the beginning of trust. And trust is the root of leadership. So the next time someone pushes back, don't raise your volume. Don't speed up your point. Don't soften your truth. Slow your breath. Steady your tone. Hold your ground. That's what separates real leaders from the noise. Not how they speak when it's easy, but how they stay strong when it's not. In leadership, clarity wins. Not length. Not complexity. Not how many words you can string together. Just one thing, clarity. You don't need long speeches to sound credible. You don't need to repeat yourself 5 times to sound convincing. You don't need to give 7 examples to get your point across. When your thoughts are clear, your voice can be sharp. When your message is grounded, 1 sentence is enough. Because in today's world, attention is rare and fragile. People are distracted. They're scrolling, multitasking, thinking about the next thing. So when you speak, you're not just sharing an idea, you're competing for mental space. If you don't get to the point quickly, you'll lose them. Fast. So here's the hard truth: if you're over-explaining, you're not leading. You're leaking confidence. You're signaling uncertainty. And that weakens your authority every time. Let's break this down. Why do people over-explain? Because they don't trust their message. Because they're afraid of being misunderstood. Because they're more focused on protecting themselves than empowering others. But real leadership communication isn't about covering every possible detail. It's about delivering what's essential and trusting it to do its job. You're not here to control every reaction. You're here to deliver truth with precision. When you speak, your words should be like a scalpel, not a flood. Clean, focused, exact. Every sentence should do work. If it doesn't, cut it. The more you talk, the more chances you give people to get confused. The more space you leave for misunderstanding. The more mental clutter you create. That's why the best communicators trim. They edit before they speak. They clarify before they deliver. They remove the extra so the essential can shine. And yes, sometimes that means being brief. Not cold. Not robotic. Brief. Because when you say something powerful and stop, people lean in. They're not used to that. They're used to long-winded explanations. Endless circles. Safe language. But when someone makes a bold, clear point and then shuts up, it lands. It echoes. And that silence after a clean truth? That's impact. It gives people a moment to absorb, to reflect, to change. That's the difference between talking and leading. Let's say you're explaining a decision to your team. You could go on for 10 minutes explaining every detail of how you got there. Or you could say, this is what we're doing. This is why. Let's move. Clean. confident, directional. Will some people want more information? Maybe. But if your message is rooted in clarity and delivered with strength, most people will respect your focus. And they'll thank you for not wasting their time. You also build trust this way. When people know that you get to the point every time, they listen more closely. They know your words aren't filler. They know your voice is efficient. That earns you attention. That earns you authority. Think of the leaders you've respected most. Did they ramble? Did they drown you in side notes? Did they talk for 20 minutes when 2 would have been enough? No. They said what needed to be said and then stopped. Because that's what leadership sounds like. So how do you build this habit? Start by preparing better. Before you speak, ask, what's the point? Why does it matter? What's the one thing I want them to remember? And then speak only to that. Leave out the fluff. Cut the preamble. Skip the ego. And deliver. That's how you create messages that move people. Not just messages that fill space. Let's address another trap, the fear of being misunderstood. A lot of over-explaining comes from this fear. If I don't say it 10 different ways, they might take it the wrong way. If I don't explain every step, they might not follow. If I don't give context, I might look unprepared. But here's the truth, adding more words rarely creates more understanding. It usually creates more noise. Understanding comes from clarity, not quantity. Say the right thing the right way once, then stop. And if someone needs clarification, they'll ask. That's when you respond, not with defensiveness, but with calm. Happy to explain that further if it helps. That's leadership. That's strength. That's security. Another trap? Trying to sound smart. A lot of people overtalk because they're trying to prove how much they know. They think complexity equals credibility. But the opposite is true. The smartest people make things simple. The clearest voices are often the most respected. You don't need to teach everything you know in every sentence. You just need to say the right thing with strength at the right time. And here's the real win. When you master concise communication, you get more done in less time. Your meetings shrink. Your decisions speed up. Your leadership sharpens. Because the less you say, the more people hear. The less you repeat, the more people remember. The fewer examples you need, the more weight your point carries. That's communication with authority. So what does this look like in practice? Instead of saying, I know this might sound obvious, and I'm sure you've already thought of it, but I was thinking maybe we should try reaching out to the client again, just to see if they're still interested. You say, let's reconnect with the client today. That's it. Same idea. Stronger voice. Faster result. And that shift, when you do it daily, builds presence. Because people feel when a voice is disciplined. They feel when a message is built, not blurted. And they respect the difference. So train for clarity. Don't chase long speeches. Chase strong sentences. Speak with precision. Speak with intention. Then stop talking. Let the words land. Let the silence work. Let your message echo. That's leadership communication. And once you master it, people won't just hear you. They'll follow you. Everybody talks. The world is loud. But most voices vanish within seconds. Most words disappear the moment they leave someone's lips. Why? Because they were spoken to be heard, not to be remembered. Real leaders understand this difference. They don't speak to fill time. They don't speak to be part of the noise. They speak with one purpose, to leave something behind, to say something that sticks, something that lives on after the meeting ends, after the audience walks away, after the moment passes. They speak for impact, and that means their words are designed to stay. If your goal is to influence people, to lead, to change minds, to raise standards, you can't afford to be forgettable. You need to build a voice that echoes. So how do you do that? Start with intention. Ask yourself before you speak. What shift am I trying to create? What do I want them to remember tomorrow morning? What sentence is worth repeating? If you don't know, neither will they. That's how you begin to speak with memory in mind. You don't just say what's on your mind. You shape your message so it's repeatable, memorable, and simple. People don't remember everything you say. They remember what they felt when you said it. They remember the clarity of your point. They remember the weight of your delivery. They remember the moment something clicked because of a single line you dropped that cut through the noise. And that only happens when you stop performing and start being real. People don't need another slick speaker. They don't need another motivational cliche. They need someone who speaks from something true. Truth is unforgettable. It breaks patterns. It shakes people out of comfort. And it earns trust. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need flawless grammar or a powerful quote. You need something real, spoken with conviction. Because conviction is what creates memory. People remember certainty. They remember clarity. They remember when someone stood up and spoke with a voice that didn't waver. A voice that didn't seek applause but spoke anyway. Let's make it practical. If you want to be remembered, stop burying your message. Stop talking in circles. Stop adding maybe, I think, this might not make sense, but stop talking to be safe. Start talking to stand. Give people words they can carry with them. Words they can use. Words they can repeat. Words they want to repeat. You want someone to quote you? Give them a quote. You want someone to share your message? Say it like it was made to be remembered. No fluff, no filler. Just the truth said clearly with zero hesitation. The most powerful messages in history. They weren't long. They were sharp. They were clean. They were repeated because they were designed that way. So build your voice the same way. Ask yourself, if someone could only remember one line from this entire conversation, what do I want it to be? Then build around that. Deliver it. Pause. Let it land. And stop talking. That silence after the point, that's when it sticks. That's when the listener starts to own your words. That's how leadership sounds. Another thing to remember, people are hungry for truth. They're tired of noise, tired of empty talk, tired of safe opinions. They crave clarity, direction, strength. They want someone to say what they've been thinking but didn't have the courage to say. They want someone to speak not just to the moment but to their future. That's what your voice can do. But only if you stop watering down your message to be liked. Only if you stop saying what works and start saying what matters. You don't need the room to cheer. You don't need 1,000 likes. You need one moment where your words land and change how someone sees the world or sees themselves. That's the voice that leads. It's not impressive, it's impactful. It's not flashy, it's focused. It's not loud, it's lived. And that kind of voice is built through discipline. By choosing your words. By cleaning your message. By saying less with more intention. By building sentences that feel like anchors, strong, simple, undeniable. Speak to the future, not to the room. Speak like someone planting seeds, not tossing words into the wind. Some seeds take root instantly. Others take time. But they all grow if your message was real. So stop trying to impress people in the moment. Start aiming to change them after the moment. That's what memory is for. That's what legacy is for. That's what leadership does. When you speak, make it count. Make it repeatable. Make it undeniable. And then stop. Let the silence carry the weight. Let your voice echo long after you've left the room. Because when your voice is built with precision, truth, and power, people will remember you. Not just because they heard you, but because your words stayed. This is where it all becomes real. Not in the moment you speak perfectly. Not in the meeting where you impress everyone. But in the daily discipline when no one is watching, when there's no stage, when it's just you and your voice and your standards. Because strong communication isn't built in public. It's built in private. Great voices are not born. They are trained. Leadership speech isn't a talent. It's a skill. And like any skill, it sharpens with repetition, pressure, and practice. You want your voice to lead? You want people to follow your message, feel your conviction, trust your words? Then you have to earn it. Daily. Not just when it matters. Every single day. You train your voice by noticing it. How do you sound when you're calm? When you're excited? When you're frustrated? When you're challenged? Most people don't know. Most people haven't listened to themselves closely. Most people are unaware of the tone, the pacing, the emotional charge behind their words. You cannot change what you do not notice. Start noticing, then start correcting. Do you speak too fast? Slow down. Do you ramble? Tighten your thoughts. Do you soften your truth? Cut the extra words. Do you apologize for your message? Remove the disclaimers. This is the grind. The real grind. Not the performance, but the preparation. You don't wait until the high-pressure moment to develop your tone. You build it in the small moments, when you give feedback, when you ask a question, when you explain an idea to a friend. Everything is training. You speak with discipline in every interaction, not because the stakes are high, but because your standards are. And here's where the real shift happens. Your voice isn't just about communication. It's a mirror. It reflects your mindset. If your thoughts are clear, your words will be clean. If your confidence is earned, your tone will be steady. If your standards are high, your delivery will carry weight. That's why the work is internal first. You train your mind to think in strong sentences. You train your internal dialogue to lead, not to doubt. If your inner voice is weak, your outer voice will crack. But when your inner voice is disciplined, grounded, and focused, your spoken voice becomes unstoppable. You also train your energy, because people don't follow sound. They follow presence. And presence is energy made visible through tone, posture, and timing. If you speak like you're half awake, no one will feel what you say, even if your words are technically right. Your message isn't just what you say, it's how you say it. Train your tone to carry intention. Train your rhythm to carry steadiness. Train your pauses to carry gravity. Practice speaking powerfully in quiet rooms. Practice speaking calmly under pressure. Practice pausing after big statements. Let the silence echo your point. Here's another thing. Get comfortable with silence. Most people are terrified of it. They rush to fill every gap. They talk through their points, afraid someone will stop listening. But the most powerful communicators pause. They breathe. They let the message land. That stillness? That confidence? That's leadership. And it can be trained. You don't need a huge platform to practice. You don't need an audience. You need commitment. You need to care enough about your voice to make it reflect your values, not your insecurities. And as you train it, something amazing happens. Your voice becomes effortless. You stop thinking so much. You stop editing mid-sentence. You stop trying to sound like a leader. You just are one. Because your tone flows from your clarity. Your message flows from your belief. Your presence flows from your repetition. You walk into a room and speak, and people feel it. You don't need to convince. You don't need to chase approval. Your voice does the work, because you've done the work. Every day, every conversation, every sentence crafted with care. This is the edge most people skip. They wait for confidence to arrive. They wait for the right moment. They wait until they're forced to speak and then hope their voice shows up strong. But you won't be one of those people. You'll lead by preparation. You'll walk into rooms knowing your voice is trained, steady, aligned. You'll know how to speak when it's hard. You'll know how to pause when it matters. You'll know how to say just enough and let silence do the rest. That's when leadership becomes natural. Not because it's easy, but because it's trained, it's earned, and it's real. So from now on, you treat your voice like what it is, a leadership weapon, a credibility signal, a force for movement. You sharpen it daily. You protect it from laziness. You clean it of soft language. You let it reflect who you are, not who the world wants you to be. Because when you do that, when your voice carries weight, when it's aligned with your thinking and your values and your direction, people follow you. Not because you forced it, but because they felt it. They heard truth. They heard steadiness. They heard something real. And in a world full of noise, that's the voice that stands out. That's the voice that leads. That's the voice that lasts.